Greetings and welcome to another Tomorrow's World Webcast. My name is Wallace Smith. It's good to have you here. Except for the title depresses me a bit today. Well, I guess I'm encouraged that questions are being asked, but the direction in which our culture is going does not encourage me. I have an article in my hands from the New York Times, dated February 10th, 2016. The title reads this: Assisted Suicide Study Questions Its Use for Mentally Ill. We are in a day and age in which assisted suicide is being more and more accepted. And now people are running against not only boundaries where they don't know what to do, but they're discovering that the previous boundaries that seemed so rational and reasonable are being abandoned. And as a result, finally, at least, there's some people asking questions. I don't think the question askers will win the day. Jesus Christ will win the day one day, but He's not here yet. Let me read just some selections from this article. It starts off, a new study of doctor-assisted death for people with mental disorders raises questions about the practice, finding that in more than half of approved cases, people declined treatment that could have helped, and that many cited loneliness as an important reason for wanting to die. The study of cases in the Netherlands should raise concerns for other countries debating where to draw the line when it comes to people's right to die, experts said. Let's see. There's just so much I could read. I'm not going to read it all. I would really love to do so. But it really is depressing. I'll just read this one more selection. It says, this is actually from a doctor of psychiatry, medicine, and law at Columbia University. He says the criteria in the Netherlands essentially require that the person's disorder be intractable and untreatable. And this study shows that evaluating each of those elements turns out to be problematic. In other words, they had a policy in the Netherlands where a person couldn't actually seek out and have accomplished doctor-assisted suicide unless he suffered from a condition, a disorder that was intractable and untreatable. And yet they take a look at these cases and find that half of them, that wasn't the case. That a person was refusing medical assistance with their disorder, but also one of the major reasons cited was simply loneliness. And we're talking about half of the cases. In one of the countries in the world that has one of the most mature assisted death programs in the world. If theirs is getting so out of control and so lopsided, then what should we expect? How do we think that we as a nation, or in your country as a nation, can necessarily do any better? Really is, the comment that it makes on our society to me is one of the worst. I am not saying that there is not loneliness in the world. I know as a working pastor, I've counseled people in their loneliness. I've worked to help alleviate the loneliness of others, connecting them with other people. That's part of why God has created, for instance, His church. We have families. There should be those reaching out to others in Christian love. And yet here we are, we have a society that, though it was never its intention or desire, is beginning to embrace doctor-assisted suicide as some kind of quote-unquote solution for loneliness. That should depress every single human being watching this webcast. What kind of direction are we going in as a society? Where do we go wrong? It's always important to be able to ask, where did we veer in the wrong direction? Because sometimes you think it was the last turn you made when it wasn't. You got off the right highway a long time ago. And we can trace where we went wrong all the way to Genesis chapter 1. There's a fundamental truth that our society is not only simply forgetting, but it's increasingly, actively pushing to the side. And it's the truth of Genesis 1 and verse 26. That man is made in the image of God. There is something sacred about human life that is not just open for consideration in any other way than something which is beautiful and special in the hand of God, which He owns in a very special way. You know, I had a sad moment this past weekend. Two ferrets. My family's owned two ferrets for about 7 years or so. They clearly came to the end of their life. They were riddled with, they had tumors and the rest, and I ended up taking them to the vet, and we did have them put to sleep. It was sad, and I will freely admit that I cried a little bit over just two ferrets. But at the same time, does that mean we should be able to do that with human beings? Man was given dominion over the earth. We have a stewardship in that way. But when it comes to human life, Scripture very clearly elevates human life to something special, something distinct, where our suffering actually has meaning, where our lives are not really in each other's hands, they're in the hands of God Himself. We've forgotten that humans are anything special. And as a result, we've come to a point where people are being allowed to kill themselves legally with a doctor's help because of loneliness. When we remove God's guidelines that help us understand human life and help us protect human life, then we encourage a culture of death. And this is simply one of many, many signs. I hope this has been a profitable webcast, and I hope you'll check out our other resources at tomorrowsworld.org.